Hello, this is Hamlet from the Guild Juggernaut on the server Mal'Ganis, narrating a timed bear run of the new 5-man that came out last week. Here's the group just getting some quick buffs before we start. Simple stuff, feasts. I would recommend turning in a troll tablet to the archaeology quest at the beginning of the zone. That buff seemed to add a nice amount of DPS. As far as the group itself, there's nothing specially optimized here for the video or anything like that. This is just me logging into guild chat and bothering people to run a 5-man until I got a group. The group is all raiding mains, so reasonably well geared, 359 to 372 gear, but as you'll see, we're going to finish with a good 5 minutes to spare out of the allotted 25, so there's quite a bit of room for a lower DPS group to be able to make it in time. As far as composition, we have 2 range DPS and 1 melee. That's pretty convenient. If you have 2 melee, there are a few annoyances at some bosses, but nothing that's a really big deal. We also have a replenishment, which is a nice thing to have if you're trying to move quickly. We have a bloodlust, which is not as big a deal as you'd think because you only get to use it on 2 of the bosses anyway. And we have some rebirths. We don't need them in this run, but in general, having a rebirth or 2 is a nice thing to have. It ensures that you don't have any sudden wipe that ends the run. Remember that unlike 10 mans, in 5 mans you can use as many rebirths as you want. Moving forward, this patrol here was directly in our way, so we just killed it. Very often it won't be, and you can simply run past it and start the gauntlet towards the first boss. If you do run past it, remember that it will be there, and you have to make sure not to pull it as you're running across from the first to the second boss. The gauntlet is very much the same as in the first Zul'Aman. After you aggro the lookout at the beginning of the gauntlet, packs periodically spawn. They alternate between a pack of eagles coming from the front of the gauntlet and a pair of warriors running in from the back. There are also 4 static pairs of a protector and a wind waker that you have to fight on the way through. Here we run through the first 3 pairs, clump them up, and start DPSing. Nothing too special so far. You can see dropping the occasional stun or interrupt just to help keep pulls clean, which is always a good plan through this zone. There's the first pack of eagles running in. AoE them down quickly, continue moving forward. There's the last static pair and the Tempest at the top of the ramp. When he is pulled, the spawning stops. You just want to pull him into the pile as quickly as possible. In just a second, the warriors will arrive that spawned. There they are, and that's the last spawn we get on the way through the gauntlet. So as you can see, if you move through in DPS quickly, you don't get bogged down fighting continual spawns in the gauntlet. The point is to get through to the end very quickly and kill the minimal amount of stuff possible. It's taken us about 3 minutes to clear to Akelzan, which is not a bad time at all. Everyone gets to the top of the ramp, briefly drinks up, and we move into pull. There's nothing too special or difficult about this boss really. Make sure to spread out to not share damage from the nature buff. Melee can stand at max range to not share with the tank. If you have multiple melee, it can be a bit sketchy. The healer might have to work, but it shouldn't be a big deal. They can consider running out if they get stacks of the debuff. Otherwise, burn the boss, kill the white kidnappers when they pick people up. The fight takes a little over a minute in this video for us to kill. Here's the first storm, make sure to handle it correctly, and then come back down and finish off the fight. This boss should not give any amount of trouble to groups that are expecting to finish this run in time. 16 minutes left, so 4 minutes it took us to clear to Akelzan and kill him, which is not bad at all. Obviously, don't release the prisoner while the timer is running, just turn around, mount up, and start heading across to the second boss. Remember that patrol of 2 mobs we killed at the beginning of the zone. Oftentimes you won't kill them, and just make sure to dodge them as you're running across from the first to the second boss right there. This pack of 3 will jump down from the ledge when you arrive. Make sure not to forget about them and run through into the next pack. So far there's nothing too tricky on the trash though, with just tribesmen and axe throwers you can pretty much pile stuff up and kill them. This pair of bears I think has been moved slightly so you can no longer run past without aggroing it. Either way it doesn't do anything too interesting. Again, you're just running in, tanking, and DPSing down. Multi-dotting for good DPS efficiency. In order to do this run, your group does have to be pretty accustomed to moving smoothly as a group, having the tank move forward and pull mobs without hesitating and have people start DPSing. This pack is where you get the first medicine man. He drops totems that heal the trash or give it immunity effects. The more you stun him, the less he drops it. In general, you want to throw any interrupt, stuns, any similar effects you have onto trash. You don't need an elaborate rotation or anything like that. Just use those effects as they come up and they keep trash smoother by reducing the amount of damage coming in on the raid. This is the first pack of Warbringers. At low HP, the troll on top will dismount and become a separate mob. That too can be avoided with a well-timed stun. As you can see here, the first Warbringer never splits. The second one does. When it does happen, just keep DPSing the troll, drop it to low HP, and then quickly get on the bear and drop that too. They do have a Sunder armor, which you don't want to let stack up too far. This pull you want to consider a CC on the Medicine Man. We drop a sheep here. It can become a bit messy if you let everything arrive at once. Otherwise, it's just like the previous pull. The axe thrower doesn't really matter. Um, Once again, we get a good stun on the first war bear that prevents another mob from appearing. Little things like that can save some time. It's not important as simply pulling cleanly, not having aggro all over the group and things like that. All in all, it's taken us about 4.5 minutes to clear to Nalarak. It's a slightly longer segment of the run, but we're still making very good time. Nalarak himself is slightly changed from the original 10-man version. The mechanic now is that 3 times during each troll phase he will charge at the furthest person away from him. You simply have to make sure that the same person doesn't get charged twice, and then no one will die. If you have 2 melee in the group, then that takes a little bit of extra work. You have to make sure one of them runs out at the right time to eat one of the charges. Otherwise, he goes into bear form, silences, that can't be avoided. Make sure your healer stays on top of things. This is actually the easiest boss fight in the zone. Just make sure to DPS him down quickly and move on. We don't have our Bloodlust up here because we use it at the first boss, which has slightly more potential to give the healer some work to do, but either way it doesn't especially matter. Looks like we got some good boss DPS on this run. It only took us about 60-65 seconds to finish off the fight. 16 minutes is quite a lot to have left at this point. 12 is pretty reasonable. 13 or 14 should be very comfortable for any group. Here we move up into the corridor to the third boss, which has the scouts. They work roughly the same as in the old ZA, but they have very little HP now, 19,000 or so. So as long as you get the jump on them, rather than just body aggroing and letting them run away, they're quite easy to kill. The packs here start having flame casters in them, which can output a lot of AoE onto the group. So that's a good time to throw interrupts and stuns onto mobs, and that's generally the target you want to focus down first. The Archons are mildly annoying. They just go immune for a few seconds as they're getting to low HP. Just kill them last and burn them down. They still don't do anything incredibly important. You saw a scout in that pack being handled with Death Grip, which is a pretty convenient way to do it. This room coming up is tricky. There's a scout that aggroes with the pack and another one patrolling on the left that might sometimes aggro. As you can see, we got adds from that latter scout here. It's surprisingly easy to do. Don't panic if it happens. We just continue Aing down the Dragonhawk pack, and once they're done, it's just an ordinary trash pack of 3 mobs, even with the 2 reinforcements in there. So don't worry about it too much. Just try to be a little more careful than we did and watch for where that scout on the left is as you run into the room. There are 2 to 3 more scouts coming up in this hallway. Again, we were almost a bit careless there. Just make sure to run up to max range of scouts and have someone with a good DPS spike nuke them. You can see me leading with entangling roots here. That's just a habit from the old ZA, really. It's barely worth doing given how much HP they have. This pack has 2 flame casters, so you want to make sure to burst one of them down and potentially stun or interrupt nicely. Otherwise, as always, kill everything fast and move on. There's going to be only one more pack before Jan'alai at the top of the stairs. It does have 2 flame casters. It doesn't have a scout in it. It's another convenient place to just throw down a CC to make sure to keep the pull under control as you take care of the Flamecaster. If you have a mage in your group, he can spell steal and use the little earthquake effect, which is sort of convenient. It adds some DPS and then you don't have to worry about it being used on you. Now we're coming up to the third boss. He has a little bit more going on than the first 2 bosses. He takes a bit longer to kill, 1.5 to 2 minutes it should take you, and a few mechanics you have to pay attention to. First of all, there are 2 different kinds of fire that this goes without saying your group has to be able to not stand in. There's the line of fire on the ground and then the bombs that he spreads out that you have to find a gap between. Beyond that, you have to have a way to deal with the hatchers and the eggs. In a timed run, you're not going to have all kinds of time to let each wave of hatchers spawn a few eggs at a time, then AoE them down. Here we simply burst down one of the hatchers as it runs into the room and let the other one start hatching freely. And as those ads stream in, just keep killing them. It actually becomes a little harrowing in this run because we burst the boss down to his 35% transition while these ads from this side are still spawning. And so now the all of the eggs from the other side are just going to swarm in. But as usual, don't panic. Here we get a well-placed Ring of Frost and Army of the Dead. People are focusing on correctly dodging the bombs rather than panicking about all the ads. And we simply finish them off. I have a little aggro here. Um, I would probably take it slightly slower if you're trying to be careful to make sure you finish off one pack of eggs before you transition him. Oh, if you do transition him during bombs, make sure not to run into this wall of fire. It will kill you. When it's done, move across, watch for that pair of ads patrolling at the bottom of the stairs, and come across to fight the first pack of lynxes. Here we had 10 minutes left after killing the third boss. That is quite comfortable. You should be happy if you have 7 minutes. 6 is starting to cut it close, so you have some sense of pace here. With that pack down, there's a crocodile pack coming up that you can skip. I don't actually see where it is here. We run into this corner. Oh, there it is, over on our right anyway. So I think we could have just run down the path, but here we have the habit of using Path of Frost to go across the water. Be a bit careful with Path of Frost if you have it. It is slightly wonky with some mounts. We stay mounted and charge through the first pack of lynxes to pick up the second one. The AoE cap is 10 mobs, so why would you AoE down 2 separate packs of 5 mobs sequentially when you can just do 10 at once? This is the sort of approach you take when you're doing a speed run. I keep pointing it out over the course of this run, but high DPS is the important thing. Not only does it obviously save time, but like is always true in WoW, high DPS simplifies everything. There are fewer dangers, fewer complications whenever you end every encounter quickly. Oh, one thing I want to point out before I forget, if you fail this run, or even if you succeed, you can simply queue again while you're still in the zone. As far as I can tell, when you're in either the new Zul'Aman or Zul'Gurub, if you re-queue for a random troll instance while still in the zone before killing the final boss, you'll always get the same one again. So unlike the old ZA, which was a really big deal because if you failed, that was your only attempt for 3 days, here you can just keep trying. And it's one of the reasons that this run is a lot less worrisome to deal with. You can try as many times as you want. This pack here will have handlers or beast tamers in it. Here we had handlers. If you do have beast tamers, make sure to burst them down at the beginning. They will mind control party members, and it's one of the few things that can actually mess you up on trash. All right, here we're coming through and pulling Halazi with 6 minutes on the clock. You would be perfectly comfortable with 4. 3 also really. 2 is pushing it a little. If it's just tick to 2, you're probably fine, but otherwise you might be in trouble. 6 is obviously perfectly comfortable. Nothing too special at this boss. If you stand in these water totems, there's no reason to kill them. They give you a ton of HP and mana. I think this run we actually do the Halazi achievement for not killing any of the totems because someone in the group needed it. It doesn't change that much. If you burn through the Lynx phases fast enough, then he only drops 1 lightning totem each time. And if you notice, the damage is insignificant when we're standing in one of his other totems anyway. Uh, do note that we're just keeping DPS on Halazi the entire time rather than switching to the Lynx. It's more convenient with dots and debuffs and things like that. There's no particular reason to switch targets if your DPS is high enough. Other than that, oh yeah, here you can see me just outranging the lightning totem. That's another way to deal with them. But on a real run, you'll obviously be killing them. They have very little HP when you don't care about the achievement. And there we go. We're finishing with 5 minutes on the clock. And I guess all I'll say is that I pointed out at the beginning that our group was well geared, but I keep pointing out the good pace we have to show that there's a lot of room for lower DPS to still make it through. Your DPS could have been almost 20% lower than ours and still made the timer. So even in a much lower tier of gear, if you were 39 levels below us, if you were in blues and some 359s, there's nothing stopping you from making this run even with the bear timer, if you play well. So once again, the things I would stress are a good DPS. There's pretty much no way around needing to have 3 people in your group who know how to do good DPS. But beyond that, it's simply knowing what pulls come in what order and pulling smoothly so there's no downtime during your run. That's part of the point of this video, to just let you watch what happens. You can pretty much replicate the route we take here and smoothly and confidently arrive at every pack and start fighting it. And there's our bear. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you.